Uh, Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Bernard renterghem. I'm from CISM UCLouvain HPC team with Damien, Olivier, and others. I'm going to give you a small introduction to the Unix, Linux, and some Linux command, mainly command line, how to use it, because when you connect to our CC cluster or other machines, you mainly have a prompt and you begin to type. So maybe if you're familiar with Windows and mouse and click and drag and so on, it's quite different. We can do both, you will see, but with some command line, you can work faster, and it's mainly more used in the HPC world. This morning, Frédéric have presented you the introduction to the HPC. So we have shown you different cluster in CC. Here in Louvain, we have mainly two cluster. Lemaitre 3, because this is the third version of Lemaitre. There was in the time Lemaitre without any number, then Lemaitre 2. And each time the new cluster is twice the power of the previous one. And but nowadays, Lemaitre 3 become a little bit older, and there are new cluster. I can present you very quickly what's in this. You see that when you have a CC account, in fact, you connect to all the CC cluster in the French part of the Belgian University. That means ULiège, UNamur, UMans, UCLouvain, and ULB. With the same account, without any restriction, you can submit jobs, and even you can share data between all these clusters. And we are a working team, and we work together with different HPC manager. So if you need a specific software installed on one cluster, which is not present on the other one, you can ask to the support team, and we will do our best effort to install that on the other cluster. And you have seen that, in fact, when you connect to a cluster, you are connected to a front end. That means it's a normal Linux machine. And you submit a job by some command typed in a script, in a file. You submit it, and then the SLUB manager decided where you can run depending on the requirement you have introduced. For instance, the amount of memory, the time your job will run, and so on. But in order to do that, you must know, of course, how to manage the file, because in Unix you will see everything is a file. So how to remove file, how to change the name of how to create directory, and this is the main topics here. It's basic, so maybe people are more familiar with that, but this introduction is sometimes needed for everyone to make a good start in the HPC world. I take an old slide, which is freely available, and it's published on an open license, so everybody can use it. It's well done. So, of course, some information are a little bit old, but I skip that very fastly, and I present you mainly what's Unix, what's the philosophy of Unix, and the different Unix still living today. What's the GNU? What's a GPL license? And there are plenty of Linux distribution. You can install that on your own laptop or computer or desktop or whatever, or you can install that in a virtual machine on your Windows or your Mac, and you will see that it's easy to use. Even you can do that just like me. You install only Linux on a laptop, and you do whatever you want. There is no restriction. You can browse, manage a file, manage PDF, and so on. Nowadays, everything exists in Linux, or in open source, or in commercial software. After the presentation of what is Unix Linux, I will present you some commands. What's a command interpreter and how to submit a command. What's a file system in Unix, how to manage file directory and sorting file, how to manage all the data you will generate in the HPC cluster. Of course, you have plenty of same user at the same time on a machine. So there are restriction and access right. So you cannot remove file which not belongs to you. You remove file only when you are the owner of this. You can change the access right. The file can be set as executable. That means that you can start the execution of the contents of this file. We will see that how to change and to check what's the file right access rights. As I said, in Unix, Linux, everything is a file. So when we produce an output, we can use this output as the input of another instruction. That's the concept of redirection and pipe. So the output of one file becomes the input of something. And so with just like some Lego pieces, we build something more sophisticated, it's more complicated with some very small instruction. That's the pipe, the standard error, and so on. Of course, how to manage a process, a running process. You can only cancel your own process, because you cannot kill process which not belongs to you, except if you are the administrator of the machine, that means a super user or root in Unix term. You can then kill, and even if you kill the first process, the first user process on a Linux machine, you reboot it directly. So when you are rooting machine, you don't have to make some error. It happens sometimes. Not like. But for an ordinary user, you cannot kill a process which is not your home process. That's a security reason, of course. And of course, due to the fact that when you run a process, you consume a certain amount of memory, of some cycle, CPU cycle. If you're plenty on the same machine, there are some rules how to run that without annoying the other one. So on the front end of a cluster, you don't run a CPU intensive job for a long time. Of course, you can compile job, you can try if it starts and if it's the result for small data is correct. And when you know that it's okay, you start, for instance, there are some specific partition on the machine where you debug program, and when it's okay, you can start job by submitting with some system, but never load too much the front end. Otherwise, the other user, when they type ls list to check the file, it takes seconds and it becomes very quickly boring to wait because it's loaded. Even if nowadays it's not the case as the previous computer, there are plenty of core. The machines are more powerful. There are 128 core on a single node. So with such amount of CPUs, with a large amount of memory, it becomes more supportable, more convenient to work together and load a machine for that. So how to check your task, your running task? What's the environment variables? what's the path? The search path of your executable, you can change it. And if you change it on a certain way, it becomes dangerous, or we will see how. What's in shell aliases? The bash resource file, which is loaded when you start bash an interactive session. We continue with, I don't know if it's very interesting, but I can show you some text editor, but you may use your own. And nowadays, if you are with Windows, there are plenty of tools, for instance, MobileStem or things like this, or you opened transparently the removed file on your Windows session or your Linux session, and in the environment you're familiar with, and it's changed on the cluster, on the remote machine. So how to print the file and not print so much file. It's okay. You can generate a PDF if you want. So on. How to search. So I start. Before I present you plenty of commands, for instance, cd, cp, move, and so on. Maybe you already know, but and the different option. I will present you what's Unix, where is that coming from, and what is Linux, what's the difference between Linux and Unix. In fact, it's very old. I'm born with the first Unix. Unix, in fact, is a whole joke, because it's a variation in the lab of the Bell Lab, done by the father of the C language, Denny Ritchie and Ken Thompson. Make a small subset of multics, and then he called that, for the joke, Unix multics. And quickly it becomes the diverse between two main versions, the BSD from the Berkeley University and the System 5 family. And now, 20 years later, after 2000, I can say that the commercial Unix have mainly lost. They are still in the main big bang company or things like this, HP Unix or IBM machine, which run just like my friends in the past, plenty of Linux instance on the same IBM machine. Solaris has disappeared, a little bit killed by Oracle, but it still exists open source or other BSD version, for instance, FreeBSD, OpenBSD, NetBSD, specialized in security or portability or whatever. Fun fact, in fact, macOS 10 ASX is a Unix system. When you don't use only graphical environment, you open a terminal, you have a true Unix system. And a lot of developer, programmer, and so on use Mac because they have the great environment, graphical environment, and the power of Unix behind. And of course, in this tree, you see one free line with GNU and GNU Linux. What that means? That Richard Stallman has started in the middle of the 80s a GNU project for create a make-file or printing something or create an editor. And after that, he created a compiler. And then a young Finnish student called Linus Torvalds create a small Unix system from scratch using the GNU tools. to compile it and to implement it. And this is why nowadays we still call not only Linux, but GNU Linux, because Linux without the GNU tools doesn't exist. And so at the beginning, it was only working on the 386 computer at the time. And he said, Mr. Val, it will never be ported on other machine than on the PC. But nowadays it's running on plenty of kind of CPU and devices. For instance, Android is in fact a Linux kernel, and your television mainly, there are plenty of Linux instance in your car with the GPS, the TomTom GPS of your watch run on Linux. There are fridge running Linux and so on. And 99% of the HPC most powerful computer are running Linux. That's we can say, if we count the amount of Linux instance, Linux F1, because except on laptop and on a personal computer, Linux is everywhere. That's true, but there are a lot of hidden ladder, and maybe one day Google will remove Linux to change the kernel by Fuchsia and another instance written from scratch. We will see that in the future. So when Frederick said that in this morning that your phone is more powerful nowadays than the first computer. When I arrived 20 years ago here at the UCL, the main computer for the HPC center, there was only with 2 CPU and 2 GB of RAM, but at this time it was enormous. And nowadays I have 8 times this amount of memory on my phone, and how many cores have I? I have 6 times more core. So the progress of the CPU, progress of the HPC world is quite amazing. So the main Unix philosophy is small is beautiful. They love to say that. So there are plenty of small instructions. When you check in the Unix distribution, there are plenty of executable, and all those small executable, they use very particular things with some extra argument. We can complexify that a little bit, but they do that very fast, very efficiently. They are how to search a file, or to display a file, or to see the contents of a file, and then when we put those small pieces together, we can make some things more sophisticated. And the captive user interface, that's true, maybe. And the advantage of the command line and terminal is that even if you are at the other part of the world, you can start a program on another country, on another cluster, and without any restriction. And of course, with the progress of the throughput of the internet links and so on, even the remote application are quite okay. But I remember in the past, when we display something remotely, if we are not close in terms of network quality, it was awful. And so the advantage of command line is there, very obvious. System abstraction is something I'm going to talk about. I said that Linux is a kernel. It's a kernel which connect to the devices, the hardware. So it's specific. There are plenty of driver inside the Linux kernel. And with that, there are an abstraction layer and a POSIX compliant layer. That means that when you program in a C language, for instance, when you want to connect to a drive and the contents of the drive, it will be all the time the same way of programming that with abstraction layer. At the top of this layer, you have a graphical environment, which is called X window. This is X because at the time there was W window, and then they create the next version X, and then the number will change and it stayed to X. So it's multi-user, secure, of course, except if we don't set the security patches. When the advantage of open source is that we have access to the sources, so we can trust what is done in a software. Of course, if we trust and if we don't compile and we take executable and packages from a sources, it must be a reliable source. And even with that, if there are security holes, it's warned and there are security patches, and we have to apply that on a machine, on a cluster. Otherwise, it may exist people who try to take advantage of this failure and this way to access and to escalate privileges to become root on machine, for instance, to install the spyware or whatever. So security reason is something very important in Unix, as on other informatic systems, computer systems. Everything must be up to date. So it's multitask, of course, plenty of users. There are hundreds of users on the front end of a machine at the same time, so it doesn't annoy the work of the other. Of course, network support that's a minimum. I said that the kernel, the Linux kernel, and upon this Linux kernel, there is a C library, a POSIX compliant layer, which make that compatible, even if it's another hardware, even if it's another kind of computer, another video card or whatever. And upon this, there is the user layer on which you work, on which you submit your compiler or your executable. You are not under the, it doesn't attack directly the kernel with the driver, but with an abstraction layer. You can use the different computer here on the cluster. What's the GNU project? Very quickly, GNU, it's a joke again. They like the joke. GNU means GNU is not Unix. Then you are in a loop. So it's implemented and it's completely free of every Unix commercial sources. And it started by Richard Stallman from the MIT, let's say, with a C compiler. And heaven nowadays, the GCC, it's not just a C compiler, but this is called a compiler collection. There is a G14 compiler, a JavaC compiler, C++, and CC, plenty of different compiler, but still this is the evolution and the progress and the communitary, the work of thousands of people together to improve and to to make an up-to-date compiler, which is quite performant now. Make is a tool to compile different sources. It's a makefile. And makefile describe all the different portions of the code or file used by this code, the different library, what's the different option needed to compile it. And the advantage of the makefile is that when you touch a portion of code, when you work on just on one aspect of a big project, when you recompile it, if the rest is up to date, it compile only the touched sources and generate very fastly the executable at the end with all the object file put together. And the core util, this is the small executable, the small Unix executable used to manage file. Okay, so due to the fact that there was no kernel, they used, in fact, and the project of UCLouvain come in good timing, and started to have a great success directly. And you know, the main contributor to this project is a big company like IBM or even Microsoft or research time and so on. And yeah, company want to have the hardware supported by Linux because it's required by big research company or big university or big company who makes simulation. They need, for instance, the driver for the GPU card. If there are no Linux version of driver for this, maybe an open source project can be started to write one. But if the specification and the API of this card, this hardware is not known, it's very hard work to discover that without receiving any information. But most of the time, the company gave all the information needed to generate a good driver. Most of the time. So, the new public license is an idea that when you make a code, you give that freely with the sources. But with one condition is that the people who use that and improve that, in return, they give the improvement they ported and added to this program. So you cannot use a GPL program, take your own and hide the modification only for commercial reasons or something like that. Sometimes it happens. In the story of the GPL, there are layers to try to fix that when there are conflict. GPL is, at the time, Windows company said that this is a cancer, because when you have something in GPL, you cannot remove this from a program. So Microsoft worker cannot use a GPL program. It may corrupt and it may contaminate the rest of the work. No, it's not very change, and Linux is included nowadays in a subset of the last version of Windows. Okay, Linux install, new tool, new Linux, free software. That's what I said. Plenty of Linux distribution. You can install what you want. and see the difference. Here in the HPC world is for historical reasons. It's because we work together with the CIRM in Switzerland or Europe, and they use Red Hat-like distribution, Scientific Linux or CentOS. We use this kind of distribution, but you can use on your laptop Fedora with it's a more it's the stuff used for Red Hat to improve the next version of Red Hat, upon which CentOS is built. It's a little bit complicated. So it's in the same family, Fedora, but every 6 months there is a new beta version and new evolution. It's changing very fastly, so sometimes it's a little bit harassing to try to follow all the this cutting edge distribution. So one well-known distribution is Ubuntu, the derivation at the time from Debian, which is a communitary and open source distribution with a very long history. It's used Linux from a German company at the time. But there is all the time an evolution here with that. Commercial vendor, big company, Debian, OpenSUSE, so on. And if you want to try another Unix like operating system, you can try NuHurt. I don't know if it's it's a microkernel. It's a very long project start so many years ago. BSD family, there, as I said, FreeBSD, and there is a Butterfly, or variation of FreeBSD specialized on laptop. And with the graphical X11 environment, you will not see directly that you are running on BSD. You can see that you want to be more exotic by trying to run a FreeBSD. That's true. Okay, I'll start directly now with the command. When you log on a machine, you start a shell. There is, for instance, here I'm logged on Lemaitre 3. So 3. I don't know if you already have a CC account. If you have, and you are already familiar, you can log on this machine, and you will see that directly with the CC account, you can log on other front end. For instance, this Manback front end. Manback is the other cluster at UCLouvain. Manback was the fellow and the friend of Lemaitre when they are studying here in UCL. So we give that the name of Manback for the second cluster of UCLouvain. But with a CC account here, I'm in Namur on Hercules 2. I can log on for instance, I want to connect on the Dragon 2. Should have to start SSH agent. Oh. Here I'm in Humans directly. So you see, with the same account, you connect on all the CC cluster. The command is nearly the same, as I said. For instance, the first one everybody knows is list. List is show all the file you have in the directory, in your current home directory. What's your home directory? Is the place when you connect to a machine, you log by default in in a place where you have the right to write and to create files and to put your own file. One command with ls is that you have an argument. If you want a long list, you type -l. Then you see plenty of information there. Just before the file name, you see colors, of course, but it's not mandatory, but sometimes it helps. Put color directory in blue. You see that it's a directory there, but mainly -l, that means a long display with plenty of information, creation date, size, owner, right access, and so on. We will see that. I said that I'm in my home directory. We can say that this is a representation of my home directory. This is a prompt. It can be different. It depends. For instance, here in Hercules, they've decided to put the clock. It's beautiful, with the login name and at the machine name and then the path. If I change directory, cd, change directory, and I decided to go somewhere, it's set it by slash. In Windows, this is backslash. Here it's slash. For instance, a home. I think that it's my home. No, it's not my home. It's somewhere. And you see that in the prompt, there is the information where my current working directory on the. Yes?
Do you make exercise after, or it's not only important to tell them?
Sorry, but what was your last?
You plan to exercise after, or is it better if they do it at the same time?
What I suggest is that when I give an explanation, please do the same and manage how to change the file. I will not directly make exercises where, for instance, if I have an ID, then create a file and see the contents of it. I let you do that by yourself, and after a small amount of time, I suggest a solution, because all the time there are plenty of ways to do things. There is no.
So maybe one comment then. With yourself a terminal like this on your Windows, you can install Mobile Extern. And on Mobile Extern, you have an emulator where you can run every command exactly like Unix.
Yeah.
And so that after that, how to connect on those clusters, we'll see that tomorrow. But then you can already use today Mobile Extern and then download that and run all the same command exactly to run what.
That's true, because in Mobile Extern, if you're on the Windows environment, Mobile Extern included all the Sigwind tools. So you have all the bash and the command, the ls and so on, and you open a terminal and you are on your window, but it's just like a Unix system, a Linux system. Not completely, but everything is present. So I've changed from home, but you see PWD, print working directory, of course, it corresponds. I see I'm in home. If I do cd without any argument, what happens? I come back to my home. My home there. Okay. What's my home? PWD, print working directory. In fact, here, my home is home DVR. But you see, if I on Le Maître 3, PWD in my home is different. Because here we have decided to set home, saying that this is the home of the user, then /UCL, that means I'm from UCL, other are in member or whatever, and then a group, a working group. For instance, if you are in model or in I don't know, in Shin or things like this, and then my login name. Everybody have his own login name. and set it when you create your account. They suggest you with the first letter of your name and you put what you want. If it's not that word, that's it. CD. Double point. This is something special. That means one level upper. You can see that just like a tree. If I do CD slash, that means I'm in the root of the file system. Everything I said in Unix, everything is a file. So if I'm here and I make the list, I see something that there, giving information of where is the home subdirectory, etc, user, var, and so on. You don't have sometimes the privilege and you cannot see and go inside subdirectory, but this is for security reasons. If user don't need to see contents of critical file, they are hidden for them, but it's not a problem. CD, for instance, etc and etc ls. I see file inside etc. CD, one level upper. I'm back to the root, the upper point of the. If you see that just like a tree or like an horizontal tree, it's an image. CD without any argument of CD tilde, that means go back to my home. There, I'm back home. I'm comfortably now. Here, I can create file. I can create subdirectory. MK, make directory. Make directory new, for instance. Call that. Then I can list it. Of course, I see nothing, but this is because it's a directory. And if I type -long before, I see that this is the time of creation. Yeah. This is the right access. We will see that. This is the owner, BVR. I will explain why twice BVR. The size, it's very small because there is nothing inside, and the date, the creation date, and the name. If I do CD new die, and inside this, of course, if I make a list, there is nothing inside. It's empty. I can create touch my first file. There is no restriction. You can type plenty of letter. Space, it depends. If you put that into quotes, it's okay. Or this is okay. You see the file I've created by touch, but you see the size of this is 0. That means it's an empty file. There is nothing inside, in fact, in it. Not very interesting. So PVD, you know the result. I will be into home UCLouvain BVR new dir. If I go there, for instance, where am I? To home UCLouvain. If I do touch, what's happened? Because I cannot create file into home UCLouvain because it belongs to the super user, and those are the other guys from the PAN group. I don't want color. You see, there are different color displayed on the screen. Sometimes with a wide back, it's not very easy to see cyan blue.
When you created a file with touch, what's the format of the word that you wrote? Like, randomly?
Right. This one?
Yes, it has no format.
There is no format in Unix. There is no format. You can create that to be. There are some conventions. For instance, if you have a file text, you can cp this one, copy into a file.text. But there is no meaning in this. It can be move a file text. It's okay. There is no convention at all. But for particular reasons, when you create a file, for instance, when it's a shell, you can decide it's your own shell, to call it with a .sh. When they are what's called a table, that means a collector of all files put together into a single file. We put that with a .tar at the end. When we compress a file, we had .gz because it's the GNU zipper and so on. There is convention, but it's not mandatory. And so you see, if I want to remove a file, it's dangerous because there are no undelete. So if you remove a big file, it's destroyed and then you have lost it. There is a way sometimes to get it back because we make some backup. But if it's a new one from the day or from the hour, we cannot be sure that we can restore it for you if it's important data. Take care. For instance, I do that, rn remove a file. You see, I type very quickly because when I type F with a tabulation, it completes with the matching file in the current working directory. F with tab, there is only AF file text which it's matching. If I rm n tab, this is only this one. And you see the space to be not taken just like a space between two arguments of the commands. There is a backward there. That means that this space is literally a space for a file name. No? See. If I do that, I remove it. Unless there is no. So cd print working at cp. I'll show you instead of move. This is rename, but cp that means create a copy of a file. Oh, same file. It returned too fast. I wanted to add a 2. Cool. Cool. You see, just the difference between that is the creation date, which is different, 3 minutes. If you touch a file, I think that the creation date is changed, the last modification date of the file. So, cp move. When I want to remove a subdirectory, I try to remove this. What will happen, you think? It will be refused because the directory is not empty, fortunately. Times if you have a big directory with plenty of file, with one extraction, but if you turn -r recursively, this is dangerous. This is a very dangerous instruction. Remove with -r, because I remove everything from this point and everything after that tree. So you cut the branch directly. So no such final directory. Everything and every contents of this subdirectory have disappeared. So remove minus recursive is dangerous. There are also meta character. I didn't show you that. If I want to see only file handling with RPM, with one star, that means everything, whatever the number of letters of number of characters it has before, and those are all the RPM file. Ls minus text. And this, for instance, that means everything containing text inside, somewhere in the file. But there are no difference, there are nothing. I will show, for instance, NP. You see, you directly have the information. When it's a directory, you see the contents of this directory. And of course, the output is long. If you don't want that, just show me only the directory name. So I have the file containing PM there. Where is that normally much? And yeah, the color is the information. Blue, dark blue is subdirectory. In red, this is a package. And other ordinary file, there is no color. You want to see the contents of a file. For instance, I don't know what's interesting there. This is something I think that is a shell script, because by convention we have add.sh. So if I tip tab and there is nothing, that means that there are two matching files, and they suggest this one or this one. So I had a minus, and then it's only ZFS minus. You see, this is the control. More, show me the contents of a file, what's inside this file, and then it displays the percentage displayed on the screen. And if you tap space, for instance, you see till the end. Cat directly display that on the current output without clear. Cat. Also, yeah, when you have typed some instruction, you can use the arrow, the upper arrow, or to come back to the other one, like this. So I type very quickly like this. That display on the output instead of more. And you have a progression, a percentage, and you have to tip the space bar to put all the lines. You can use less. Less is more than less. The advantage of less is that you can use the arrow to go up and down. You do not edit this file, so you cannot modify it. It's safe to make a less. But you see the contents of that. And the advantage is that you can search, for instance, if I search for ZFS, it will show me where it's founded. And you tip next to go to all the ZFS matching instances. At the end, I tip Q like quit. Less is more efficient than more. But it's the same menu.
I don't understand what's
More is to check what's inside a file. So you see, for instance, ls minus long ZFS IOSTEP, file in my home directory. I see that this file belongs to root. It's not mine. It's an old one, 2 years or 3 years old, and the size it's 2000 byte, 2 kilobyte, and so on. So this is the size. This is the file, and I want to see. So that means that they have more than 2000 characters inside this file. And if I tip more, this one, I see written by this one, and this description and so on. And you see more, you see percentage there. If I tip space, more. And at the end, it gives me the hand back with the prompt. I see all the contents of this file, page by page.
just to read the file.
Just to see the contents of the file. What's inside the file. And cat do the same, but instead of stopping at each screen, so you can see display that very fastly, and you don't have the time to see that. Where cat path. But with your mouse, you can go up and see that cat is there, and then the result is there until the end. At the end, you get the prompt back. That. And less, just like more, but you can go up and down. You can search inside and to see instance of files. But it's not an editor. It's just to have a look.
When inside the command less to find a word, it was / and then the word.
Something very useful is the manual. When you don't know something, you tip man, and then less opposite of more. And then description, command, and after that, scroll forward, scroll backward, escape, and so on, ripping screen, scroll forward. Plenty of pattern, slash pattern. Search for one file, all the file containing. And you have, for instance, even the opposite of the matching pattern, the not matching pattern. Plenty of things. The manual is something you have for everything. Mine ls, you see, minus a, minus block size, minus color, minus directory. This is what I've used. There is something interesting, is minus long, sorted by time, but in a reverse order. Or reverse order, long time, or the order doesn't matter. RLT. The advantage is that I have the youngest and the last file close to my prompt. So there, and there's minus. Those are fine there. And the oldest are there, for instance, more than 10 years ago. But if you don't tip in reverse order, you will have the oldest there, But due to the fact that when you submit a job and you want to see if it generates output, you go in your working directory where you run your job and you make an ls-l. And there are plenty of things to check if your process is generating output. You can follow a file by using tail. For instance, tail Intel. This, of course, it's not opened and keep the hand back. But when there are file opened and there are still things written inside by a running job, you tail the file, and then when there is new output, you see directly on your screen, it's still working, it's written inside. I show you the cat. Very quickly, you will see that the shell, the path, yeah. The difference of absolute, an absolute path and a relative path is that when you are there, if you do, then or CD or LS. This is relative path. It's relative from the current, from the place where am I. But this is absolute path because it starts with a slash. TMP is a directory where everyone can read inside, but cannot destroy the file which not belongs to them, of course. But if I create a touch test in file TMP, you see, this is my file. It belongs to me, BVR, and this is other file from other user. That is mine also. If I try to remove CC message of the day there. Not permission, but I can make a copy of it, and I call it CC message of the day. And then cut my message of the day. And then this one I can remove it, I can change it, I can copy it, CP my, and if I do that return, what's happened? I copy this file into my home directory in one instruction. Boom. If I go back into my home directory, I sort it by time. I'm pretty sure that the last one is a copy because it's still existing into TMP. ls minus long into TMP, something starting with my. Maybe there are not only my CC message of the day, there are something else. Yeah, there is only one, this one. And you see the time is different because it's 1 minute older. The content, of course, is the same. Cat. Here I have my new directory, my CC. if I grep something, for instance, give into my. See, this is what that mean. Grep, that mean find and take if this word, if this sequence of character is present inside this file. And of course, give us some beautiful color to give the confirmation it's matching. And there is, it gives only the line where it's matching. If I do that grep minus n, it's the opposite of everything except the matching lines. Oh no, the number, it's extended grep. No. V, no. Sorry. Everything except the line matching give. Minus n give the number, the line number. It's the fifth line which give in the line. This is with a small text, but with a very long and complicated output. Sometimes it's useful to sort it, to grep if it's matching. So grep is quite useful. So grep minus insensible with capital or lower of things like this, Nick. 3 times this line, this line, this line. And you see, it isn't, in Unix, there is a difference between capital and lowercase letters, except if you specify, I don't want to take that into account with the minus e argument. You see. If I do that cat, I see that 3 times. Cat. So it's the don't want to show directly the redirection. This is a Unix command mainly to show who is logged currently on the machine. You see all the people there. This is the pseudo terminal where they are connected, and this is the connection time. So you are not secret on the machine. Everybody can see that you are on the machine. And event that you are coming from this machine. So the net is coming from gateway CC ULB, and it started the session at this time. So if I do that, and I want that the output of this result is the input of something else, I put that pipe who, and for instance, sort. That means that you see A, B, 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 C, until V. The output is sorted. The output of who becomes the input of sort. I think that I can do that. If I have a file, I will take one. Just do. I think that it was previous. not very interesting. I can do that. Alice. And put that in my file list. In that the output of this command, ls minus long sorted by time in reverse order, and I want to put that output into a file, everything in the file, a file called my list, my file list. Of course, I don't see any output, but if I check the time, see that I just create a file called my file list, which is 4 kilobytes long, the time there. And inside this, more my file list, you see everything. If I do now grep BVR in my file list, I just have this one. I've removed everything belongs to root or someone else, and I can show it. ls minus l my BVR. See, my BVR is smaller than my file list. Word count, my BVR, give me the number of line, the number of word, and the number of character. Of course, on a text file, the number of character is the same of the size of the file. So if I do that, just minus word count minus the word, the line, the number of lines. So it gives me 44 line, and this my file list. You see, the number of argument is not limited to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you have the sum of the number of line of my file list and the number of line of my word count. But you see, you remember I did who, and I want to know how many people is there in one instruction. Okay. Who, I, word count minus n, and I have 22 persons logged on the machine at this moment. So you see, with 2 instructions, you generate another output. How many people are coming from ULB in one line? How you did that? How you should do that? Who have an ID? You can put output of one after the other. It's not only 1, 2. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever. So who? You remember grep. Use grep, and then use the count of the number of lines. Who? Grep ULB. And if you want to be sure that it's only this, of course you have already the solution. 3 persons. Why is there what CC? Yes, CC, CSM something else. Dragon 2 only 1. Okay. So you see, the output of the who is grepped, is the input of the grep instruction, and he put that as the output of the word count minus L instruction. Can be put that in cascade.
I don't really understand if I write who in my code, who or person.
Yeah, on which machine you are allowed.
The net 3.
You should have the same.
I mean, your list just.
It's normal.
Yes, yes, who does it gather? It's like people right now using the.
Who is logged currently on the machine on this machine on the front end? No, just on Lemaitre, and the into parentheses that mean where they are coming from. They are coming from Dragon 2. They are coming from Gateway CC.
Okay.
They are coming from.
If you want to know who you are, it's who I am. So it's really to be sure what you're logging. But that's not really useful for users. For us.
It's a philosophical question. Are you sure? So, with head or tail, I can have only the first line or the tail of a file or the head of a file. For instance, remember who, and I do tail minus 3. I have only the 3 last one, this one. No, I want only this one with one instruction, how you should do that. I help you with the tail and the head. You play with tail and head in the order what you want, and you do with a pipe. You are able to select only from this to this. You make tail, no, head minus 6, and then tail minus 3. Oh, 3. There's someone have left. Of course, it changed. 1, 2. Someone is just logged. It's changed. This is the. If I do this, you see. I want only. Do that. You have to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 2 times tail minus 5, and then head minus 2. It's 3 instructions. So tail, head. The access right, maybe I can show you that. Or I don't know, maybe we can make a small break. Get something to drink. 5 minutes. Everybody? You remember? You could close for the long. see matching character, CD, tilde. Of course, I said tilde is home, but tilde Sydney is the home of Sydney. This is, for instance, if I try to do inside the Moula. Oh, no, don't tip ls. But I thought that I didn't have the permission. But it depends on what they have to choose as the right access to this subdirectory. Maybe if I tip ls, it will not be allowed, but I don't want. So tilde, that means tilde, the home of someone. Change directory, CP from a file to target. Copy plenty of file to a subdirectory at the end. Interactive, that means that ask for the confirmation. Sometimes it's useful to, when you remove, to add the minus interactive to be sure that don't remove file you want to keep. I think I will not show you that because we need a SSH connection. Move and remove. Interactive minus A. Cat less more. Sin. Tail. Tail. Grep. Symbol and link. Show you that. File access file. Okay. You remember I've created my my directory or something like this. I don't remember. My dear is a capital. I copy my. I tip that is to my new directory. I will show you that CP into my directory. Of course, he said that I will not put my new directory into my dir. If I have done this, minus recursive with minus R in this case, but it will ask for something else, you will see. It depends. My new directory is something big. I didn't see the size of this. I can cancel it with a Control C. It's too long. This queues. Why? Submarine, submarines. Human readable. It's not so big. Why it takes so long? Never mind. There, you see, you see that when I create a file, I see this. It seems to be a little bit complicated, but things about Hugo, user, group, and other. And also think about read, write, and execute. When you remember that, you know everything. If I say that this is just the first minus is to see that if it's a directory or an ordinary file, not a directory. But then you have the read, the write, and the execute. Then read, write, execute for my group. In this case, but because we've chosen to do that, my group is just the same as my login name, but there are other installation of most of the time the group of searcher in the same laboratory choose to use a group to work in collaboration together. And instead of this is lab 3 or something like this, and this is the group, and the other is the rest of the world, the people who are not in the same group, and not myself, of course. If I do that, I had the execution permission to my BVR. Oh, change, sorry. If I check now, I see that I have had an X there. And of course, the color have changed. The color is just an indication saying that this file is executable. So if I try to execute it, it will try to run it, but it's no sense. The contents of this, you cannot execute that, but you can try to execute it. If I put a dot, that means at this place, where am I? Here. Then my BVR. I want to execute my BVR because it's an executable. I put -x. But of course, he will say that all the command, it's not found because it's nonsense, or it's not a bash instruction. It's just an output of a command. But if I make a file, for instance, cat, oh no, echo, let's make this. T, and then I put that into LSA. Search. When I check all the file, I see this one. I see the contents of this file. Then I decided to put that executable. So change mode, user, and I can say that even the group and the rest of the world can execute it. LSA. You see, I put an X there. For the group can read and execute, but cannot write it, of course, because it's only mine. I don't want that the other member of my team can modify it. And then I execute it. Of course, it works now. It's an executable, and the content is executed. What's a small example, but you see how to create an executable containing instruction and with condition, with parameters. You can create very sophisticated script. So if I do change mode, the user cannot execute it. LSA. When I try to execute it, it's not an executable, permission denied. Put that back. It works. So you see what's an executable, how to change this with the read, write, execute, writes. For the user, the owner of the file, the group, a list of users from the same team, and the other group. There are plenty of combination which is nonsense. For instance, you can execute, but you cannot read. It's not very useful. of course, in the subdirectory, if you set write access to directory, you can restrict the permission to, for instance, the other to see what's inside a subdirectory, or in your group, if you restrict it only for you, you cannot. You are the only one who can see inside this subdirectory and the subdirectory after that. This restriction is not relevant for the super user, because super users still have the right to bypass, to override the access right restriction. Just know that. So this is readable, writable by the owner, and only readable for the group and the other rest of the rest of the world. This is only readable for the group, but not the rest of the world, for the owner of the directory. See, there's combination of, instead of playing with Hugo, you play with the one. So 644.no, just read for the group and read for the rest. And the combination can be set, for instance, go, group, and other. Add the, and remove, or remove with a minus and add with a plus. Recursively, you can change that. Of course, it's capital here because the user, yeah, that's funny, but for change, he will say that, oh, there is a restriction. I want, do you really want to bypass or overpass this restriction? And you said yes, and then you restore it because you are the owner of this file.
And if I don't want to give the right to read to all of the group, but only a specific group, for example.
Yeah.
I'm working on
there is more sophisticated way with the ACL or the secondary group, but it's not directly down. Yeah.
That's the way to do that. And then you can say, okay, that file belongs to you, and then the group is that file. And then you give the right for that group. So that's all it's going to do. And in a group,
we can create group, specific group for a smaller team like this. For instance, there are commercial software, and they cannot be executed only by the people which are in the group. Pay for the software. So only this group can execute it. You must be set into this group to be able to use this software.
and to create a group, you need to send an email.
Yeah.
So that we cannot create a group alone.
I show you the redirection. You remember when I tip who and I put that into a file, and then it's written. This is very interesting. It's happened to an existing file. So if it, for instance, cat, let me say, and then I put that in L2. If I do cat L, you see 2 times. If I now do this one, what will be the number of line of L2? 1. It happens, it concatenates. So 4. Because it's already existing, so it doesn't remove, and it add contents to this file. So it had 2 times this line, so the contents of this file. It 1, 2, to this, which contains already two lines. That means 4 lines.
And only one creates a file.
Yeah, if I do that again,
What's the difference with copy?
CP, it's not the same. If I do that CP LSA new, I change the name of the file. It's the name of the file, but the contents is not affected. Now I have two ls. This one and the new one, CP. I mean, I create a copy with another name of the file.
It's with cat, if you do cat and then you put direct on one file, that will be the same as the CP. But
Yeah.
cat, you can print multiple files, and therefore what you do is you put in one file multiple files, the rest of multiple files. So cat is in a way the CP, but it's more.
Now, if I do cat L2 into ln, no, not ln, better L. How many lines will be into? What will be the result? This was 4. 3 times 4 put into M should be 12. It's see this one. Of course, if I do that, it's just like no, like this. It's just like a copy. This or this is the same. And then cat this one. Multiple 2. If I do that, even if it's not existing, it's okay. 24. And this one. 24 will be, but this one. So you see the difference between put the output into a file. If it exists, override the contents. Don't take care what was previously, or happen that at the end of the file. This is the redirection. Find. We can play with the job contains the process, the running process.
Yeah.
Bigger than?
When,
Yeah.
without cat.
What?
Here we use it with cat.
This one? Not existing.
Yes, what is that?
Just like a touch.
Ah, okay.
So the bigger arrow, what it takes the what's normally into the screen and widening that time. That's what it does. So can you do this cat with the file? Maybe
It's empty. Huh?
another file, just the element, for example, cat element.
It's long, no?
But you see it prints on the screen normally.
The
And
output.
the bigger arrow will take what is now printed on the screen and
I redirect the output into a file. Yes. So instead of print that on the screen, I put that into F. And then check the number of lines into F.
And then that's why the double arrow doesn't otherwise define those add at the end of the time.
You remember, we are on a machine, which is the front end of Lemaitre 3. There are plenty of people, let's see, and there are plenty of process, PS, process. When by default, I see only my process into the current session. So into this bash session, and the process identifier is a unique number given by the kernel, by the system, by Linux. This process is this number, and PS just exists the time of the PS. If I do PS again, it's another PS process running. It's very, and then after the execution of the process is finished and the PID is released. It's another number. PS minus L long. Give me more information. It gives me the user identifier. That means this is my number, the number of BVR. Process identifier, it's all the time the same, of course. And the parent process, it's hierarchical. That means that when you connect to a remote machine, you do that with an SSH. We will see that tomorrow. And then this process fork and start a bash process and give that, and you are the owner of this bash process running. You need to continue to run on machine. But the father of this bash is not owned necessarily in this case. Yeah, it's owned by yourself. But when you check the parent of the parent and so on, it becomes owned by root. So, let's see. If you want to see plenty of process, you can click top. Top, you see the uptime of the machine, only 12 days. We have rebooted 12 days ago the machine. You see the number of users, and every, I don't know, 3 or 5 seconds, this is refreshed by the running process. And you see the load, the average load, since 5 minutes, since 1 quarter, since, it's, to check, nowadays, 5 minutes and 1 quarter. The number of process, the number of running process is quite huge. There is only one running, which is top. You see the state of the process. The running process is owned by BVR. There are somebody who is typing watch. It's another process. And the PID of this process is this one. No, top. There is some, if I try to do this kill, this one, what will happen? Not permitted, because I'm not the owner of this top. But if I wanted to kill this one, it will be allowed, but no, I have to open another, for instance, there, SSH. So when I check root, I see that I'm 2 times there. I'm here and I'm here. The new one, the old one. I have a pseudo terminal. The number is bigger. The starting time there, the starting time there when I'm logged, but I'm logged from the same node. Process. List of the process, or no, I will do something else. Top. I see that one running process is the top. It's owned by BVR. And this number is the PID, the process identifier unit process. If I try to do that, then boom, when I go back, I see that I have been killed and get back to my prompt. So I can only kill my own process, running process. Except root, you can kill it. Beg your pardon? Quit. Minus Q. There. There are plenty of options, and don't remember. You remember top display Linux process. You can set a specific delay in seconds. So if you do the top minus D1, it will be very fast. If you only want to see your home process, minus U. I'm the only ones on this machine. I see the 2 bash. If I kill, you see the this top is the sum of this bash, because the number is close now. If I kill this bash from here, I will hand this interactive session on this terminal. But if I kill this bash, so from my TTI 6, yes, long U PVR, the bash from this session, if I kill this one, I will hand this terminal session and I will be killed and put back to my login session. If you have a running process, for instance, sleep, very interesting process for 1 minute. Doesn't give back the hand, but on the other terminal, PS minus L U BVR, I see my sleep process running there. I can kill it. Terminate it before the end of 1 minute. When I run a process, I can put that into backgrounds. I get back the hand. I have information about the number, the PID of the process, the running process. If I do just a PS without any argument, I get this one, the sleep there, and the PID of this one is, well, just like we said, this number. It will sleep for 1 minute, but I can there kill this one, or put that in foreground and get back my running process, and then Control C to terminate it. Control C. Oof. Or if it's running without ampersand, that means not in background but in foreground, I can put that Control Z, it stopped, and then I put that in background. There is foreground process. That means when it's running in foreground, it doesn't give you the hand back on the current shell, working shell. If you put that into background with an ampersand at the end of this instruction, it will give you the hand back directly, and the process is continuing to be executed. there. So it's still sleeping. Yeah, sleep. You will see that at the end, if I wait for 1 minute, it will be terminated. I wait. Yes.
So background, you put your process, like the process is still running, but
Yeah.
you get
You get your prompt back.
so you can launch out.
Yeah, you can launch plenty of process at the same time.
Okay. And so when
But
the
down at the end, you get an information. Yep, the process is finished. Down. With
so if I'm working on something else, if the process is done, I'm going to get
just like this. At the end of the running process, he said that yeah, the running process is down, but doesn't affect you
okay.
except for the display. Sometimes when you are to an editor or something like this, but it's not a problem.
And for ground is to come back.
Yeah, to get it back, and then you can control it by interrupt it by Control C or else. So top, kill, so on. This queues, sometimes it's useful because I get back into my home and I see, for instance, this file, zetlib-tar. You see, it's quite big, but it's not very, you don't see directly the size of this file, so you can tip that with a human readable size information, -h, zlib. And you see it's 2.5 megabyte. I go into my new directory, and then I want to extract this tarball, the contents of this tarball. And this is with tar instruction. tar, of course. The new tar, create an archive, see the contents of an archive, or extract. This is the most important, C, T, extract. I want to see just the contents. Tar -T. And the file is an upper level, so 2./zlib.tar. And I know that inside this tarball, there are plenty of files. We started with zlib and with a big number and so on, an executable, plenty of things. Don't care about this. I decided to extract it. If I do, instead of T, extract, and I want that to be verbose, and I had a V, verbose. It scroll what it will extract from this tarball, and when I check ls, I see I have put zlib there. This is, and then if I go into zlib, of course, I will see all this file there. So this zlib subdirectory extracted from the tarball there, extract, is put into the current working directory from the zlib subdirectory there. I want to see, you remember the tarball is 2.5 megabyte. This queues in the submarines, human readable size of the zlib. Normally, I should have something nearly the same. It's bigger because it's the tarball doesn't takes so much space to be written inside this table. So with one instruction, this use summaries in a human readable form. You see what's the size of this subdirectory, because in your home you have a limitation of the amount of data you can write into, and when you search where is the biggest file, where have I put so many I have consumed so many disk space, with disk use you can find that. I can remove that, and I remember, but it's not a problem. I still have the table, and I can extract it back. It's back, exactly. So the table is just a big package of all the files you have put that together. I will show you how to create a table. For instance, remember disk use minus sh hdf5. I don't know if it's big. No, it's not big. Okay. Then tar minus create verbose and a file name. I call that hdf.tar. Put that tar, but it's because this way I can directly remind me that, yeah, it's a table. And then the file, the directory name, or a file, or a collection of files, of whatever. Put that, take times. You see, it's a big file, and this is called see, 206 megabytes. This is easy to put that and to send that on another computer. It's only one file. And then when you are on the other computer with a copy of this table, you extract the table, and then you have restore all the tree of files contained into that tar minus t. Have a look inside the verbose file. This one. And you see the creation time of this. Everything there. If mcap for I put it minus extract. I mean, copy. So this directory contains, in fact, this one, a copy of this one. And you see the space normally consumed, the amount of data should be quite similar. I hope so. If you go inside 4, you see just this one. This one is a table, but it takes a lot of space. I can zip it, compress it to make it smaller. We can do that in one instruction, or when we create the table, or in 2 steps. I'll show you in 2 steps, it's easy. I compress 200 megabyte. HD5, and then you see he had for me .gz. So I know, and you see the difference, it's smaller. So when you transfer that to internet on another machine, or if you want to keep that into archive, your result, it's clever to compress it. But on a compressed file, you can have a look to what's inside directly. Instead of TVZ, it will say that it's not a tarball. See, it's clever enough. Yeah. Nutar see that it's a tarball, and it's okay. So that it will say that you need to add -G. Okay. So compress is still a good way to spare space on disk, because you have a quota on your home directory on all the clusters. It's indicated on the CC website. You see home is 15 gigabytes of disk space by user. When you edit a file, I'm in my home and I will create my CC. You remember? I said that we have command line instruction. I show you plenty of command line instruction with a cheat sheet. You will have some help. But we have also a graphical environment, in fact. Of course, the mouse is working and you can make cut, paste, CP, and so on. But you also have editor. If you start it with mobile system, for instance, you have a X, we call that a X server running on your Windows session. That means that remove X11 application from the machine upon which you are connected can be displayed on your Windows session. And here you see I'm on the metro tree. If I start X clock, small example, very clever. You see this clock, this running clock, show me that we take a long time, is a process running on the metro tree front end, but displayed on my local machine, which is called Puppet. This process is a client for the X local server. See the concept of client and server. I mean, even if I start with Firefox, this Firefox will be displayed locally, but it's a Firefox running on the remote machine. And sometimes this is useful because when you have to renew your account and you are not into a local network here at the UCL, when you connect on the gateway, you start your Firefox remotely, and it's displayed locally on your laptop, even if you are in another part of the world. Sometimes it takes time because it's slower, but for the machine, you are into gateway CISM. Here, I have, for instance, gedit. It's the GNOME editor. I take which one? The text. Oui, gedit. My CC message of the day. I put that into background, and then some error problem. Example. I'm on a Wi-Fi session. It's not. There are plenty of users in the room. Sometimes it's normally it works. Bad example. Another editor, Nirvana editor. This editor is running on Lemaitre 3, but it's displayed on my local server, and I can play search and find and edit, modify. If I do that, hello, and then file save or Control S, and then exit, Control quit. I see that this one is the last modified file. And if I cut this, I see the hello there. So I can edit remotely with a graphical environment thanks to the X11 feature of Linux. Start Firefox. There are plenty of graphical environment, XView, XPDF, events is not installed. If you have a program used to manipulate file of specific graphical images, you can install that, and remotely you display that on your own laptop. I see that it was a lot of explanation with plenty of new instruction, with plenty of argument, with a lot of way to put that together. Now you can play that, and tomorrow we're going to use that when we are connected with SSH, and how to use AirSync to send that from a cluster node to another one. And then with your table you have created, you put that on the other cluster, and in one step you get all your data and your working environment. I think that you're ready. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to.
In order to zip, do we need first to do a tar, or you can do directly a zip on a directory?
You can zip a directory. There are two ways. There is the gzip and another zip. I don't know if it's installed. Is it? It's installed. Package and compress archive file, and you see it's existing from everything. And in a man page, what is useful is most of the time the example, because there are a lot of information. Zip recursively, then a subdirectory there, and you put that into a zip file. And the advantage is that it's well known also in the Windows world. But gzip also very useful. And it used this encoding. That's it. Okay. Thank you for your attention.